Ahoy all, it's Jeff, aka Godless Scummer. Welcome back to my channel, anybody who's watching. I don't expect many people will be, in all honesty. I haven't really advertised this stream. I've sent a tweet out, but I haven't really tagged anybody, and I don't expect a lot of engagement. But I felt the need to follow up a little bit on the thing I covered the other day, which was the European Super League. Now, first of all, hopefully it's going to be the last time I do a stream about football. This hopefully won't be a long one, and I hope to get back to doing what I do a bit more regularly on this, because I'm not a football channel. People who watch my channel are not football fans by and large, but got to, I've felt the need to maybe just follow up, because holy shit, what a cut. What did I do this stream 2.5 days ago? Wow, what on earth what a couple of days that's been. Within hours of my stream, and I'm not saying, of course, my stream had nothing to do with it, but I was just, another one person who happens to like football, who was outraged, like many people were, over the actions of six, Premier League clubs, and six, four other. How many was no 6 others, wasn't it? 3 in Italy, 3 in Spain, and what they tried, the breakaway league that they tried to do, which would have been a closed shop, effectively destroying the Champions League. And this is my personal belief, would have eventually led to the destruction of domestic leagues that were involved. That is my opinion on that. I don't, I saw it. I very much saw it as an attempt to set up an American sort of franchise style major league, no promotions, relegations. And, like a lot of people, a lot of people who, are passionate about football were angry about this. And I watched throughout the day on Tuesday. I watched a number of like football fan channels, which I don't normally watch. Let alone some of the clubs, like watching a Manchester United stream. They're one of the clubs, and their fans were outraged. I had a interaction on a live stream with a couple of Liverpool fans yesterday. They are absolutely were outraged about what their club did. And the same thing. You speak to a Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, City fan, whoever, they were all disgusted with this. Chelsea fans, there's a group of Chelsea fans that took to the streets, protesting other day. That happened. Yep. Hi, Donna, Sandy, and Gramsy. But within hours of me being on it last time, the dominoes started to fall. It looked like it was saying that Chelsea were going to pull from this thing, and then they. But I think, if my memory serves me right, I think Manchester City were the first ones to actually formally withdraw. Chelsea soon followed, and by 11 p.m. that evening, all 6 of the English clubs that had signed up to this thing were out. They pulled from themselves from this project, which was fantastic news. This caused a huge uproar, not just amongst football fans, but in politics and whatever, in media, and so following on the next day, with 6 English clubs coming up, it's the other dominoes in the European clubs started to fall. Inter Milan pulled, then Atletico Madrid pulled, and it was sort of down to 2, and eventually 0. Although I will say this, I don't think we've necessarily seen the end of this whole issue, because the reason I say this is this didn't come out of nowhere, and the conditions didn't come out of nowhere, and the problems within the sport of football, within the business side of the sport of football, did not come out of nowhere. This has been a long-standing problem with this sport. Now, it was brought up for quite, I thought, quite excellent with somebody on Talk Sport the other day that all the problems we know historically with FIFA and UEFA, because I don't need to get into the history of that. That's well documented. We know these organizations are corrupt and rotten to the core. They are. We know this. I think in my last stream, I actually said that you looked at FIFA a few years ago. The best way you could describe it was as an organized crime syndicate, rather than a governing body for a sport. I'm not necessarily now okay, like that. Sepp Blatter's gone and so on, but I'm not convinced much has actually changed with FIFA, and their response seemed to be a wee bit limp-wristed on the whole thing in of itself. UEFA took a little bit of a harsher stance initially over this, threatening to expel players and that from international competition. Which is something I did talk about a little bit on my previous stream. I won't get too much into that again because I think I said my piece on that. But the thing is, this was a great result, and this was a brilliant result, and I think and I think a lot of this is obviously media reaction was important to this. But I don't think people should underestimate the actual power of the fan of football fans the way. And I've got to say, what if there's anything good that I've ever seen come out of this? I know it's probably a feeling it's not going to last, but for the first time I can ever remember as a football fan, as someone who enjoys football, all the tribalism, all the all the rivalries, all the petty stuff was thrown out. And there's one thing football fans of any club in this country were, including, and I've got to say, especially by these 6 clubs that were actually affected by, that actually were part of this, that they all came together to voice their opinion and say, this is wrong. We do not want this. Why were we not even consulted about this? Because this was all done behind everyone's back. And that was great to see. A lot of the time, I feel sometimes I feel a bit ashamed to being someone who enjoys football. That was great to see. I've never known anything like that. So if there's anything positive that I've ever seen that has come out of this, was the way of football fans coming together. I mean, especially you look at some of the clubs, Manchester United and Liverpool fans come together. They don't like each other. This is a big rivalry. They do not tend to like one another. Man City and Man United fans, Chelsea, Tottenham and Arsenal fans. There's some rivalries there. They were all united on this. So that was the good thing. But I guess the question is, what happens next, and what maybe needs to happen next. Now, I don't claim, because I'm not a big football expert, really, especially on the business side of it. I don't know much about it. I just enjoy it as a spectator. I was never even any good at playing football ever in my life. But this has raised a lot of questions about the state of football and what what needs to be done now to make sure nothing like this happens again. But also the fact that there's some legitimate issues that could have been raised by these big so-called big six clubs that could have benefited the other 86 clubs in the football league. There's a lot of issues going back from the formation of the Premier League, and the issue is the way Sky TV changed the game on rights and so on. That is something that could have been addressed with this, because there could the business models of football that maybe clubs may need to possibly move to almost the Netflix based subscription thing to be able to profit maybe directly from live streaming their own football matches. May cut Sky out of the equation altogether. And that's also an option. And I said, yeah, Gramsci, I've got to be honest. Yeah, that's why I don't normally talk about this stuff on my channel. I'm not a sports channel. I like sports. Most of my community couldn't give a toss about sports, especially football. Especially football. I know, I know. Obviously, to Americans, this is soccer I'm talking about. But I think there's a few things I've got to say. A lot of things that have been brought up on the fact that, especially in England, by a lot of fans about the generally foreign owners of these clubs. Now, I've got to say that's not the case everyone, because I believe Tottenham are UK owned. I think we could be going down, barking up the wrong tree here if we talk about foreign owners. Now, obviously, the Glazers, of Manchester United, and I think, if my memory serves me correct, I think they at one time, well, I don't know if they still do, had a big share in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the NFL. I'm not so sure if they're still involved. And obviously Liverpool Football Club, or John Henry, that is the owner of the Boston Red Sox. I mean, the fact that the group that owns Liverpool Football Club is called Fenway Sports. Now, for my sins, when it does come to American football, American baseball, I kind of like the Red Sox. I don't know why. I always kind of like the Red Sox, but doesn't mean I have to like their owners. And now John Henry did make an apology, but I do not think, from the reactions, especially listening to several Liverpool fans last night, that apology has cut it with them at all. A statement by the Glazers, Manchester United fans have never liked them, have never liked the Glazers. The relationship between the Glazers and the fans of Manchester United is best described as non-existent. However, shortly before these clubs pulled out, around about the time these clubs were pulling out, the chief executive of Manchester United basically he said he was going. Whether that's linked to this or not, we don't know, because they're saying he was going to go anyway. But that's the reason. But this has brought up ownership, the issue of ownership. But I think we could be barking up the wrong tree of just saying, saying foreign owners, okay? Because we've got a lot of problems with owners, whether they be from overseas or from right here in the UK. And the warning signs have been on the table for a long time. About a year and a half ago, something very tragic happened to Bury Football Club, where they effectively went out of the Football League because of successive owners that had just put them into mountains of debts, and they pretty much lost their club. They certainly lost their position in the Football League. I haven't checked what's happened with the final thing with Bury, to be honest. Then there's a massive scandal last year, and well, I say massive, because it's a massive scandal nobody really seems to know anything about. Now, this was with overseas investors, but Wigan Athletic. Now, Wigan Athletic were owned by a guy called David Whelan, who was a big fan of the club. He was a British billionaire, made his money through selling sporting goods, and was actually a former player for Wigan Athletic. Built them up took them all the way up to the Premier League. Now they did go down, but on their way out of the door, they won the FA Cup, the oldest club competition in the world, and was, I'd say, at one time the most prestigious club competition. It's sadly not viewed that way anymore, but to any English football fan will tell you there is something special about the FA Cup that is not like any other competition in the world, because of the way it's happened. You could end up with part-timers playing against the top teams in that league. Now, I know I've got a couple of Americans watching. Let's say, imagine a competition in, let's say baseball, okay, where you have a club competition where you get a local baseball team that gets through to a certain stage of this, and they end up getting drawn against the New York Yankees, okay? And we've had huge upsets happen. So I'm going to say something special about this competition, because things like that can happen. Big clubs can come up against like part-timers and at times have been beaten. That's why it's so magic. This is another thing that European Super League, I think, ultimately would have had an effect on. But the issue of owners now, Wigan Athletic, I got sidetracked on this. Yeah, Wigan were. David Whelan eventually ended up selling the club to a foreign company. Now, the long and the short of it all is that there was a big shell game and played between this, the new owner and someone else that came in there, and they deliberately put the club into administration. Now, for those who don't know, if a football club goes in the football league goes into administration, they are deducted points from their league tally as a penalty for that. That's one of the sort of rules that was brought in, I suppose, with the intention of trying to keep club owners a bit more honest. To be honest, unfortunately, the sad reality of it is it punishes the clubs and fans of the clubs, not necessarily a lot of the owners who don't seem to give a shit. Now, it even appeared that this was done because the new person who owned Wigan turns out to be a bit of a high stakes gambler and lost a bet that about whether or not his football club would get relegated this season. So he lost the bet and actually basically put his own, looks like it, over a fucking hand in a card game, did this to a professional football club to put them into administration, and the consequence, they got relegated last year to the third tier of English football. That is the most ridiculous. I mean, why that was not a bigger scandal than it was. Now, I will say now, if that happened at a Premier League club, this would be one of the biggest scandals in the history of football. Because it is match fixing. There's no two ways about it. And this stuff isn't limited to England. We know back in 2006, I think it was in Italy, another one of the big leagues in the Calciopoli scandal, which was one of the biggest match fixing scandals in the history of football. Something is wrong with the game. Has been for a while. But there are legitimate reasons here that I can talk more about the English leagues than I can Serie A in Italy or La Liga in Spain, because I don't know too much about them. I can talk a bit about the English leagues, that there's been problems going back for a while with owners. I can tell you now, as a Southampton supporter, most of the fans are not happy with the current owners we have. Just down the road from me is our local rivals, Portsmouth. They had some real issues with owners, which saw them go in four consecutive years or whatever, from the Premier League right down to the fourth tier of English football, and they almost went out of the league and out of existence altogether because of his succession of owners that just cut and run on them, left that club in, and I was going to take the piss out of Portsmouth fans, but you don't want to see that happen to anyone's club. You shouldn't. You shouldn't, even if they're your bitter rivals. You shouldn't want to see that happen to anyone's football club. So there's problems. Bolton Wanderers almost went out of the league for simply, they were saved at the 11th hour. There's been, these are clubs, all these clubs I mentioned, clubs with big histories, long, so there is obviously, so there's an issue of ownership, I think. And it does seem to me that whatever this test is that the English Premier League, the FAPL, Premier League, and the EFL, the English Football League, it does seem to me that whatever their ownership if whatever it is, the test that they do, to me, it's not fit for purpose. To see if there's a test for whether people are fit and proper people to run football clubs. Now, it does do a sort of rudimentary background check, but I feel there's something more that needs overhauling, in my opinion, because it clearly, from the things that have gone on in English football over the last 20 years or so, tells me something is seriously wrong. I mean, the fact that the Saudi, the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman only just sort of failed this test with Saudi Arabia's human rights record. They almost bought Newcastle United, and less I say about their owner, their current owner, Mike Ashley, as well, the better. But because that's a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down, but I won't. Something's wrong there. But there is a big issue, and this is about a year or so ago, these big six clubs almost tried something similar, but had a proposal. It was still a bad money grab for themselves, and they didn't give a shit about the other 14 teams in the Premier League, which again has been the case here. And it seemed, but it does seem to me that there is a massive, massive problem of the distribution of wealth in football between the Premier League and the leagues beneath it, especially on TV money. Now, I know, obviously, the Premier League, of course, it should get the most money on TV revenue. I think that's it has to. It's what people are paying to see. They're not necessarily going to pay the same, but the split of that money needs to be a little bit more favourable to the lower league clubs. Oxers, you've got a question. Is your football a bigger sport over there than rugby? Absolutely. I don't know what I'd say is the second most popular sport here, rugby or cricket. I don't know. I mean, to me personally, it'd be rugby. I love rugby. I used to play rugby, but I'll say rugby union. No, Ox. Rugby league is kind of popular amongst sort of part of the north of northern working class towns in the north of England. It's never really caught on outside of that area. I mean, I know obviously like rugby league's massive in Australia, hence why they beat everybody at it all the time. But football. But I will say, the second most popular sport is a distant second to football. There's no two ways about it. It's a distant second. So there does, I think, there does need to be there needs to be a better distribution, or ways that the clubs in the lower leagues can, because they do struggle to make money. And the further you go down there, we're not talking massive amounts of money to the then we're not talking massive amounts of money that you see in the Premier League. There is a real gulf of difference. But why this Super League thing was such a bad idea is that, however unlikely it is theoretically possible. Now, there's a non-league club playing the fifth tier of. I occasionally go and watch. I haven't for a long time, but I do go and watch them. First, my shirt for them. Eastleigh Football Club. Now they're in their fifth tier of. I haven't got there. Let's have a look. Yeah, see the only blue football shirt I've got. That's Eastleigh Football Club. They are a non-league side. They're in the fifth tier of English football, which it's called the National League. We still sort of tend to refer to it as the conference, which is what it was always used to be known as. They fall outside of the official football league, but it is theoretically possible. Theoretically, unlikely, I'll say very unlikely, but it is theoretically possible that a club like that could build and become a football league club, a championship, and eventually a Premier League, and maybe even qualify for the Champions League. Now, it's highly unlikely, I'm going to say that, but it is theoretically possible. And you want that aspiration as a football fan. That, look, my club, Southampton. Okay, we seem to be. I mean, we've had a bad run of results recently. But we generally, I suppose, there's times when we've been in the second and third tier over the last sort of 20 years. So, but most of our time we are in the top flight of English football. See you later, Gramsci. But we don't tend to. We very rarely are we actually challenging for the top spots. We seem to be in the bottom half of that. We seem to be generally we're in the middle to bottom half of that table. Fighting for survival or consolidate. But we also want that. But it is theoretical. Again, it is possible. We want to believe that there is that chance we can actually get there. And in 2016, and over the past years, I've got to say, something quite miraculously happened. Leicester City, a club similar sort of size to us, won the Premier League. They are this season, they got into the Champions League. This year, they are competing for a Champions League spot. They are third in the table, behind the two Manchester clubs. They're above Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal, and Chelsea. They're above them. Those you want to see clubs like that get that opportunity to be able to play at the very highest level against the best teams. It should not be given as a right. That's why that's something, that's why, like a kind of like British sports fans, I think, are quite passionate about that kind of thing. That's why a kind of like sort of model like the NFL or Major League Baseball just isn't good likely to have an appeal to British sports fans in general. That's why. Lots been made of, obviously, player wages, and I do see. Now I've got to say, yes, at the top levels of it, there is some players are paid almost ridiculous wages. But again, that's another thing that goes down. The further you go down those leagues, okay, you probably will find, especially you get to the the fourth and fifth tiers, you're probably going to find that some of those footballers are not earning an awful lot more than probably I do. Some of them. I mean, I'm sure they are better paid than me, but your average conference side, if it's full time professional, and even like League Two, maybe even up to League One side, they're probably on good, what you consider good money, but they're not the tens of thousands of pounds a week that you see in the Premier, for the top sides in the Premier League. A lot's been made of that. I can understand the call for salary caps. However, I don't necessarily know that in itself is a solution to the problem, because once again, this harks back to owners. That this has been, because I can use American sports as an example here. Baseball, for example, had wage caps for a long time. It was a long time really before. Baseball players were earning huge amounts of money. I mean, they earn massive amounts of money now. They're the top ones, but I mean, but there was caps on wages. It just really what would have been going to them. Here's the thing: you put the wage cap on there, it's just going to mean the owners will take more out on the race, rather than those who I think then investment back in their clubs and whatever. It's not going to save the problem of owners taking out. So a lot's been made of that, but I don't necessarily know that is the solution. I think one thing that is definitely clear about this is that supporters clubs, basic fan clubs, supporters clubs need a say in how their clubs are run. That, whether that means they have a stake in the table or a seat on the board or something, supporters club. I mean, I listened to a couple of Manchester United fan who goes to some of like the supporters club meetings at Old Trafford. He said the chief executive was up there talking to him last Friday about, and not a damn word about what was going on with this Super League. It caught them all on that hop. Now, a lot has been made about this 50+1 rule that there is in the Bundesliga in Germany. Which was, kind of gives clubs members or so on a 50 +1 majority in saying of that. Now there's been some criticisms of that. I can't get into all the details of that because I think that would take an awful long time to do so. There is but something like that, there's problems with it, but I think it may be better than what we've got now. Wow, that's quite a thing saying. I don't tend to shit on NFL players that though, because to be honest, I think with the amount of injury, permanent injuries some of them have got, I kind of do feel they need to be fairly compensated for their playing time, really. But I can tell you now that compared to some of the, I don't quite know what the average. I have to have a look. What's the average wage of the Premier League player? Because it could be interesting. Let me just quickly Google that. of average salary of a Premiership fortunately this seems to do this by they've done this by clubs, but so this is the average monthly salary of a Premier League football player is £240,000 a month. Now, that's not to say all of them are all earning $250,000 a month, because they clearly are not. Obviously, your average football player for a club like Southampton, or for example, or Sheffield United, whatever it be, they are clearly not earning that a month. But you obviously then you have to, if it's an average, you've got to remember you've got to be putting in the top wages of players at the clubs like Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, etc. Yeah, I will say, Oxy, I know Dak Prescott was paid an awful lot of money. I've got a goddamn Dak Prescott jersey, I'm sorry to say. So yeah, I got sidetracked back onto salaries. Yeah. I got sidetracked back onto salary. I think in comparison, if I worked mine out about right, I think if it's about this, if I work that out right, it's that they're getting paid more than NFL players, from what I can tell, on average. But yeah, like I said, supporters do need a overhaul. Now, here comes some more of a contentious one, and that is, do governments need to get involved with this? Now, I don't particularly want politicians involved in football. To be honest, I feel a lot of it, especially out of the Boris Johnsons and so on in this world. They've jumped on this bandwagon, whether it be Boris Johnson, Keir Starmer, whichever party leader it is, or whoever. They've jumped on this bandwagon because they know this is a popular issue. I don't know how serious they are about this, but because it's a popular issue, maybe then if we decide if we feel that something actually needs to be put in place to reform football by governments, then I have to. Then I think it's not something we can leave off the table, because I think one thing has been proven with FIFA and UEFA over the years, in particular, is I don't think these governing bodies and that can be trusted to reform themselves, especially in the case of FIFA. Now, that brings in a whole another issue, because that's on a global thing. And this is what I think was the great tragedy of what these clubs did here. Is, I said this on my stream the other day, I want to see the power of UEFA and FIFA broken. They need to be broken, because I don't think they can be reformed. However, they did it in a way, or tried to do it in a way, that would have left all the other clubs in their own domestic leagues behind. The other 14 clubs in the Premier League, the other 86 clubs in the Football League. And Italy, Spain, and probably even more. Italian football has had a huge issue with being able to monetize it. Italian football has had some long-standing issues that I have not got time to get into, but probably ever since the Calciopoli scandal, and it's a long-standing thing because it's Serie A in Italy. If you looking from the late 80s into the early 90s, was the big football league in the world. It's where all the best players went. Now, generally, it is the English Premier League, and the Italian clubs got left behind. And there's all sorts of reasons for that. And I think partially due to the product that they put out, that is, I've got to be honest, is not as entertaining as the Premier League. Serie A is not. It was never been a particularly entertainingly. I mean, La Liga in Spain could be quite entertaining, but again, the big three clubs there. Since some of the sort of the fallings of clubs like Valencia is not the power it used to be, Deportivo La Coruña is not the athletic build, but those three clubs, and really I'd say in generally not even Atletico Madrid as much as Real and Barcelona have such a goddamn stranglehold on that. It's there's those leagues have got their own problems, and I understand this, but I would have been in favor. I would almost have been in favor of this if they were actually looking to do something about all of the crap UEFA was doing. But no, they were doing it for their own interests. They were not trying. They did not have the interests of football at hand. They did not have the interest of fans, and they did not have the interest of raising. They did not have the attitude that a rising tide lifts all ships. So I've ranted on for about 45 minutes now. I don't have all the solutions. I just think there's things that need to be done if football is going to survive, because it is suffering. I mean, there's a whole other issue I could get into about clubs being able to profit a bit more off of players they sell. I mean, lower league clubs that develop players and so on. And it's just, because a lot of clubs football players are not being developed in quite the way they were. But that's a whole other issue. And again, and it's only something that I kind of noticed on the surface, so I can't get into detail on that. But those are the things to me. Fan involvement needs to be there. Probably reforms at government level to make sure something doesn't happen again, even though I don't really want politicians involved with football. I don't see how governing bodies are going to be trusted to reform themselves, because they've proven time and again they can't be. I'm up for looking at new models so that football clubs themselves can profit a bit more. I'd like to see the power of Sky TV broken. I mean, and as I said, I don't view Sky TV as heroes in this situation any more than I view UEFA or FIFA. I don't. I will say that a couple of some of the pundits on Sky, i.e. Gary Neville's, Jamie Carragher's, Graham Souness, I do believe everything they said on their pundits' jobs on Sky about this, I do believe was genuine and heartfelt. So I know some people are like, blah, 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 they work for Sky. Yeah, they might work for Sky, but I do believe everything they said about what these clubs did here was genuine and heartfelt. I have no doubt about that. And again, distribution of wealth amongst football needs to be addressed. The backgrounds and the characters, this fit people to run a football club or own a football club thing needs desperately overhauling, and that is, I think, the very first thing that could be looked at. And fan football supporters need a say in how their club is run, maybe even part ownership in it. That's something I feel then on a level would have to be legislated. I feel. Okay, I've ranted on for long enough now. I don't plan doing any more streams on this. I don't really plan doing any more streams on football. Get back to my normal sort of stuff I do. I know this because, as I said at the beginning, most of my people who watch me couldn't care less about football. I'm not a football channel. There's other people. There's been tons of creators that have covered this and have put their thoughts in, who've done this way better than I could possibly hope to do. But I thought to throw my sense in on this because this is something that I do have a bit of a care about. Football as a sport, and it's what it means to what it actually means to communities. I mean, the business element of it is fucked up. It has been for a long time. Quick question from Ox: are they able to open up? No, they're still very much behind closed doors here. I think there's a few fans were let in to the FA Cup semi-finals Wembley the other day, but you could see they were very, very much distanced. So it's maybe on the start of it, but most of it, no, these are all on closed doors. And you watch it on TV, the fan noises are being pumped in, which is a bit weird. But it's even more weird watching a Premier League game in sort of silence, though. So I'm going to wrap up. Before I go, quick thank you to my patrons and a quick apology to my patrons as well, because so I'll say thanks to Ox, who's in the chat, Dog, Johnny the Apostate, Critical Cripple. Thanks for your support. And a slight apology because I actually really wanted to sit down and make some Patreon content this week. Now, it might have been sort of sports related, but it would have been more of a historical kind of thing, possibly, or it would have been something like that, and I've been meaning to do that for a while now. There's been stuff I've been researching so I can start doing Patreon content again. But this thing, I don't know what. This thing, I've just been watching this like crazy over the last few days. I've never followed football so close in my life as I have since Sunday night, since this thing was Sunday afternoon, when this thing was and first announced. And I guess I was going to go live again yesterday and follow up, but I just wanted to sort of see what was going to happen. And, so thanks to everyone who's been in the chat. Thanks to anyone who watches. This has been Jeff, Godless Scummer, and a big long rant about football. But hopefully regular content will be back soon. Okay, see you later. Salute.